welcome to another episode of the CoCo Coaching Show. I'm your host, Caron Marguerite. This show is brought to you by CoCo, the coaching platform. My guest today is Austin Okere. He's the founder of CWG, a public limited company that is considered the largest security firm in the technology sector on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Austin serves on the advisory board of the Global Business School Network, as well as on the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council on Intrapreneurship and Innovation. He is an entrepreneur in residence at the Columbia Business School in New York, and now has founded the Ausso Leadership Academy, which focuses on business and entrepreneurial mentorship. Our conversation tonight is going to be incredible. I can't wait to unpack who Austin is, to understand how did he start his journey? What was that experience through the entrepreneurial lens of building one of the most successful businesses in Nigeria? I also want to unpack his 5 forces model for transformation. And we go hopefully into detail around what that entails, but gives examples as well as to why it's so important. Now, one of the things that I really hope to do in this interview is to look at what is business in Africa today, and specifically in Nigeria, which holds a deeply personal place in my heart. Now, I hope that our conversation is going to take us somewhere we've never been before. And I suspect our conversation is not going to be about coaching per se, but about the world of mentorship, yes, business, absolutely. But I hope that you're able, as coaches, to gain a great deal of value from learning about Austin and the way he views the world. Hi, Austin. Welcome to the CoCo Coaching Show.
Thank you very much, Caron.
It's so amazing to have you here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Austin, I've already given a little bit of a spiel, a bit of an introduction on who you are. I'm kind of curious, though, what's behind that? What's behind the professional titles and the business and the founder of CWG and on the council for this and entrepreneur in residence, all those sorts of things. Who is Austin?
Very interesting question. I ask myself sometimes the same question, you won't believe it. But I think I'm just any ordinary guy that chose to blaze a trail rather than follow a beaten path. And let me be humble enough to say that that is not how I started. I mean, everyone starts by going through the conventional, through school. You hardly know what the future holds or what you want to do. So things happen along the line that then shape you. And just one of those things that happened was that when I was in the University of Ghana, a revolution of a great magnitude. There was a new president in Ghana, and his name was Jerry Rawlings, quite legendary. And the students, being us, went on the protest of the coup, and the government shut down the school for a year. We didn't know it was going to be shut down for a year. And so we were just waiting to be called back to school. And when that didn't happen, because I have dual nationality parentage, my mother is Ghanaian and my father is Nigerian, even though we were born in Ghana, I had the opportunity to transfer to the University of Lagos in Nigeria. And with that came my life in Nigeria. Otherwise, I suspect I'll be living my life fully in Ghana.
Had you ever been to Nigeria prior to that?
Prior to that, I hadn't, actually.
Oh.
Prior to that, I hadn't. So I came to Nigeria to start university at the University of Lagos. And
what's that like? What was it like being in Ghana and then going to Nigeria? How did you have to adjust to the different country?
It was quite a shock. If you have been to both countries, you see that the tempo is very different. The tempo in Ghana is more tapered, whereas the tempo in Nigeria is charge. In terms of orderliness, you find that you might see more order in Ghana than in Nigeria. The Nigerian energy is very vibrant, and probably should be channeled a bit more, how will I say it, coordinated in a coordinated manner. But the energy is quite palpable. But one of the big shocks for me was coming to Nigeria. In the University of Ghana, I had a room to myself. And coming to Nigeria in my university, we were 5 in the room. So it reminded me of my secondary school in Ghana. It wasn't anything like a university at all. And it was like that till I finished the university. So it was quite a cultural shock, and it took some adjusting to get used to. And then my accent was very deeply Ghanaian. And the Nigerian accent is markedly different from the Nigerian accent, both English, but one is very deep and one is very flat. So each time I spoke in class, people would just giggle and laugh and probably miss what I was saying. So I had to get used to speaking in the accent that will not make people first, get the shock of what I'm saying before they get the meaning. I'm not so sure that I've succeeded completely, but it's much better than when I came to Nigeria.
Well, Nigeria's, our audience doesn't know that my husband's Nigerian, so I do have context and appreciation for the things that you're talking about. So when I'm nodding ahead and I'm agreeing with you, I do understand. And so to give context, though, to the language, English is the national language of Nigeria because there's so many different tribes in Nigeria, the 3 main ones being Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. I just had a moment. Which tribe did your father belong to?
So you do have deep context, not a little context. You understand it very well. My father, just like me, was also mixed in terms of tribe. So my father's father is Igbo, but my father's mother is Yoruba.
Oh, wow.
So
that would have been really different for the time, because my understanding is they didn't do a lot of cross-tribe marital relations, in the 50s and 60s. Is that accurate?
It is very accurate, extremely accurate. But my grandfather was in the police force, and the police got posted to everywhere in the country. So he was posted to Osogbo, which is close to Offa. And my grandmother is from Offa, and that's where they met and married. So whilst you are very right, there were some professions that went on postings, like in the police force or in the army, that then married or had those ethnic marriages. I didn't plan to study computer sciences, actually. It was very new when I went to do my university at the University of Ghana. I had applied for medicine, which I was rejected for. I had applied for engineering. I had applied for, just applied for things that sounded prestigious, not that I knew anything about it. And I didn't do very well in my A-levels, even though I was quite a bright student leading to that time. I think once you pass your GCE O-levels, you over-congratulate yourself and you over-celebrate it. And before you know it, 2 years have gone by and you don't know anything about the A-levels exam, which is what happened to me. So obviously, I wasn't qualified for all those things which I applied for. So I got admitted for agricultural sciences or agricultural engineering. So I know a lot about John Deere tractors, I know Komatsu, but I didn't enjoy it. I just did about 6 months of it in the University of Ghana. Then I started going for the lectures. I was taking the tests, but my dean called me to his office and he said I had not met the attendance criteria. You have to attend 80% of the lectures. And so unfortunately, they had to let me go. That was
a model student, you sound as seem.
I mean, I could tell the story now with a calm hand, but I was shaking like a leaf, because everybody's had bid me farewell going to university, and then they're going to see me back after 6 or 7 months sitting at home and doing nothing and maybe waiting to take the entrance exam again. And there wasn't anything to do about it. That was the rule. So in this office with my head.
There's a tremendous amount of shame involved with that, isn't there, though, in terms of not...
I mean, the intent, the bigger shame, the shame I felt internally for letting myself down, letting my school and my department and my dean down, then letting my parents down. I mean, I just didn't know where to start from. So as I was leaving his office, something probably struck him and he called me back and he says, have you heard about a new department called Computer Science Department? They are carving it out of the mathematics faculty. And I said, no. So he gave me a note to the Dean of Mathematics, Professor Odum, and he says, I think this gentleman will fit into computer sciences. I had not heard anything about computer sciences, but anything not to go home was fine. So I gladly took the note and I was given a spot in computer sciences. And having learned my lesson of truancy, I was a studious student throughout that my 1 year. I was actually doing.
Oh, that's fantastic. One of the things that I wanted to tap into was how you then came to found CWG, and maybe you could talk a little bit about what that business is and how you then went into establishing your academy.
So CWG was also an evolution. I was working in a company, a computer company, quite big, one of the significant ones. In those times, 87, 88, 89, up to 90s, companies were trying to automate. And so the demand was much more than the supply of skills and equipment. And then computers also had a very high obsolescence factor. So I was very keen when I went to join the company to work in systems analysis and programming, which is what I was good at. But I remember when I went for my interview, the CEO just took a look at me and said, we have space for you in marketing and sales. Now, if you want to join the programming and analysis team, that will be a bit later. We don't have an opportunity there. My advice to you, start in sales, and then you can make your way to marketing, to programming section. I didn't know how completely false that was. He just wanted me in sales, and perhaps he thought I had the personality to do sales. And it wasn't really what I come there for. But
it's a big difference.
I wanted to work in the company. So I said, well, anyway, at least I have a leg in. Let me bid my time, but I continued to do my programming stuff. And I realized after a while that I wasn't going to be absorbed into the programming and software department. I wasn't. Because my boss just wanted me in sales. And I had a flair for sales that I didn't even know. Not that I knew much. I think I was just able to convince people, or people just saw me and had an empathy. Somehow, people trusted, they just trusted me when I told them about something. And that's partly why I left. Because that trust meant I brought a lot of business to the company, intrinsic trust. But now, when we don't deliver the systems as per our commitment, and these customers have paid 80% advance payment, and considering that these equipments will become obsolete in no time. So if you delay the customer's order for 18 months, it's almost obsolete by the time that it will be arriving. And there's no reason to, because it's paid for the cost and even some of your profits. So I was really, I thought, wasting my goodwill. You know, the company delayed, but the person gave me the order, and I had to be explaining to them things that I couldn't buy myself. It didn't make sense to me, and I had to explain it to them in the way that we were told by the company why. So I just said, listen, instead of completely wasting my goodwill and burn it down, let me go and start on my own. This was after 4.5 years. So I went to start a company called Computer Warehouse Limited. A lot of people ask me why the name Computer Warehouse. I think the name was not even well thought through, given where the company was going.
Hence the acronym, okay.
So, I mean, Computer Warehouse connotes a warehouse where there are computer bits and parts. And where I wanted to take the company to was more about a systems integration company that was doing services, big things. Not, and people will ring in and say, oh, would you have a mouse or a mouse pad? And I'll get very angry. But the positive of it was that it was closely associated with another company in the US called Computer Warehouse, which was supplying computers to everywhere in Africa. So it had a very high record. Nothing to do with that company, by the way. You know, and people will ask, oh, Computer Warehouse, oh, is it a subsidiary of the Computer Warehouse in Florida or in Texas? I had no clue, but I just kept quiet, you know.
Well, that's some of the best marketing you can do.
I just kept quiet.
Success by association only.
Success by association. So, but we did what we wanted the company to do. We started by being a reseller. I mean, buying from American microcomputer warehouse, just selling. But we decided to go a different path. Whereas many companies in Nigeria will sell anything that moved in the market. We pitched our tent with Dell. Dell was a new concept. Dell didn't produce to stock. Dell will produce your order to spec. So they didn't have, till today, I don't think you find Dell computers in computer shops. You order and they produce. And so we brought that concept to the market here in Nigeria, and we found it difficult initially, but we were selling only Dell. We were known as Dell in Nigeria, and that also brought a higher level of association. So people just called us Dell, not Computer Warehouse. I'm going to Dell. And so we also got a lot of support in terms of white papers, in terms of even the way we structure the business, in terms of advice from Dell, because they saw us as an extension of themselves. Wow. You know, and that went very well. And they gave us recommendations to be partners to non-competitors such as and so we actually, based on that association, expanded our influence and reach. And we went therefore into...
You were across the continent of Africa, yes? Or just Nigeria?
So we started in Lagos. Today we are. today we are. But when we started, it was just in Lagos.
Oh, wow.
How we started in was just another tale on its own. And that's why I say that I don't know how all these successful people planned how they were successful. In my case, it was totally unplanned. It evolved. There was an opportunity, something threw me here. All I had was resilience. That's all I had, and adaptability. So the reason why we opened a branch in Port Harcourt is because that's an oil-producing region in Nigeria. And so the oil companies at one point in time were told to relocate their head offices to the base areas, to their operational areas. And Shell was one of the biggest ones of the oil companies. And Shell had put out a bid. And we, as Computer Warehouse, we bidded. I realized that you needed to have an operation in Port Harcourt, which is their operations base. And I didn't have. So I went to Port Harcourt for the title defense, for the bid defense. We're in the shortlist. Having found out that you needed to have a base, I quickly went around the town looking for what could be an office. And I found a place in a residential area that, the cab driver that was taking me around took me to this place. And I saw that, well, it could serve as an office. I went to the owner who was staying next door. I gave him a check, which there wasn't any money in the account. And I told him, please don't cash it until I get to Lagos. So that I will fund the account. So when I went for my defense and they asked me, do you have an office in Port Harcourt? I said an emphatic yes. Here is the address. But there wasn't anything in that office. Nothing. Nothing.
Oh, I love it. I love
So
it though, because it just speaks to just that entrepreneurial energy to say yes first and then figure it out.
And figure it out. So they gave me a date when they'll be coming to inspect the office, and we set it up very quickly. And they came to inspect. We cheated a little bit because we sent staff from Lagos to be there as if they were part of the staff, just to beef up the. But it was.
Oh my God, you're making me cry. Oh, I love it though, because it just speaks to the entrepreneurial spirit of Nigerians, which we'll get into later. Otherwise, it's going to it'll take us on a beautiful tangent in a completely different direction. So tell me a little bit about your Leadership Academy. I know that you focus on business and entrepreneurial mentorship, but break that down for me. Like, what's that all about for you?
So the Leadership Academy was a part of what I did in Computer Warehouse. I set up the CWG Academy in Computer Warehouse because skills was always in short supply. And because the original equipment manufacturers were coming into Nigeria directly, they needed staff. And everybody went to Computer Warehouse to recruit our staff because we had a very strict regime of bringing these people to speed in a practical sense. So I understood later on that one of the questions they will ask at the interview is, have you ever worked in Computer Warehouse? Or are you working in Computer Warehouse? If the answer is no, they show you the door. So I went to our association, the National Computer Society, Nigerian Computer Society, and I said, listen, what do I do? I'm putting a lot of resources in finance and effort into training. And because the OEMs are paying in dollars, if you multiply it by our local currency, it's like tripling the salary. I'm fine if they take the staff, but can they then refund me the money to train other ones? And it was, listen, it's a free market. So the only thing I could do to help to lessen the blow of the skills we're losing was to set up an academy in Computer Warehouse. We call it, still there, CWG Academy. And we took all sorts of rookies and anybody who was willing, and we put them through a 3-month rigorous program, and then we put them onto projects, and they did very well. Now, I wouldn't say that will be successful in accounting or medicine, but technology was a thing for the kids. They catch on to it very quickly. So in 3 months, they're as good, and we made them hungry. We didn't tolerate any excuses. We took the best 10% of them, the next best 10%. Some of our customers took them because they were also stealing stuff from us. And I was hoping that our competitors were taking the balance, But the thing was that academy helped us to stabilize in terms of skills required. So that's the idea about the Ausso Leadership Academy, directly from the Computer Warehouse Academy. But the 2 big schools wrote case studies about Computer Warehouse. One was Columbia Business School. They wrote a case study in 2007. And MIT in Boston wrote a case study about the company in 2008. MIT actually did a video case study as well. They interviewed everybody around me, my wife, my business associate. They went to University of Ghana. That was a very comprehensive video case. And they invited me to come to the class to debrief the case when we were presenting the case. And I used to go to both MIT and Columbia. And I got an opportunity to be an entrepreneur in residence with both of them because they were taking more students from emerging market from Africa in tech and in entrepreneurship. And they didn't have a lot of people from Africa that, were on the faculty. So I'm ready to leave my business to go and be a faculty. So there's a course called Entrepreneur in Residence, which is like a professor of practice, which means you come 3 times a year. I go in the summer, in the spring, and in the fall, and I have.
So basically, all the good weather times, just not the terrible New York winters.
I didn't realize that they were the good weather times until in one spring when it was freezing. Everywhere was white with snow. I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. Never. Huge snow. That's when I knew that was the good times that I was doing. That's pretty. It was an exception. It was an exception.
Funny.
So, because I was mentoring in those 2 institutions, I eventually zeroed in on Columbia Business School for logistics because, I learned in JFK and then Columbia Business School is in Midtown. But if I was to go to MIT, I have to catch the train to Boston. And so that's another added journey. So I just said, listen, let me just focus on Columbia Business School. So I don't do much with MIT any longer. I do all that I do in America with Columbia Business School. And I saw that their method of mentorship, if you look at Silicon Valley, it's about mentorship that has brought them there. The curriculum is good, but the practical experience you get from the entrepreneur mentor is inestimable value. And I had open hours where people, the MBA students, so I wasn't in university, I was in the MBA, the Columbia Business School, not Columbia University. And the MBA were people that were top executives in their companies, or people that were going to start their own companies, or people that were scaling a family business. And the mentorship that I was giving them, I could see the outputs immediately. they kept in touch. In fact, one of them, his business became a unicorn.
Wow.
So I had in mind that this will be something that I would like to do in Nigeria at the appropriate time. And that appropriate time came in 2018. Why 2018? Well, in 2012, I had planned to retire from Computer Warehouse, now called CWG, because it was 20 years. I set it up in 1992, so I thought 20 years was a neat time to leave. But we had taken funding from Aureus Capital, which is a sister company to the CDC of the UK. We'd taken $10 million in funding in 2009, which was actually apt because there was a financial meltdown in 2008. And so that funding was very helpful in keeping us ahead, first afloat and then ahead. And we had to then either give a liquidity event, which means a listing or someone else buys the company, or we're going to pay 2.5 times, which means we're going to pay cash $25 million. You know, when you're taking the funding, these are the last things on your mind, but they should be the first things on your mind. So
yeah, decide to take the money only after you've worked out how to give it back.
Well, you take it first, and then you work out how to give it back. But I think it's the wrong strategy.
I agree.
I had give a talk at the Lagos Business School, and I said, just casually, I'll be leaving in 2012. I'll be leaving in December, and Philip will be taking over. And by the time I got to the office, there was a mini board waiting for me. And it was like, did they misquote you, or did you say something about your leaving? I said, oh, yeah. Actually, I plan to leave in December. And then I realized that, no, you just don't stand up and leave when you have partners in the business, because there's something called key man risk. And I was a key man and had been insured against. So if anything happened to me, then they will get their money back from insurance. And this is not something happening. I mean, you just can't leave unless we have a liquidity event, or you pay us $25 million. So in 2013, I worked to list the company on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I mean, they came in at a valuation of $55 million. We listed on the stock exchange at $90 million. So that was very good. And it was the biggest security in the technology sector of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. It still is. And on the back of that, I was a finalist in the Entrepreneur of the Year that EY organizes, and got noticed by the World Economic Forum, which then gave us an award as a global growth company. Hence, I ended up on the World Economic Forum. Hence, I ended up as an entrepreneur in residence in Columbia Business School. And in 2013, it wasn't a right time to leave. We just listed. So this time it was not a dictation, but it was an appeal that you need to stay, and whether I stayed. And in 2015, I said, well, I've done 2 more years, so I think it's time to go. I was very anxious to go, because you start out with a job, then you build a career, but you end up with a calling. Whether it's Bill Gates, I mean, Bill Gates started out with a job, but he's in a calling now, working very hard in his foundation, nothing to do with technology, it's just a calling. Paul Allen went to play music, and Wozniak was teaching young kids in secondary school. That's the calling, different from the career. So I think my calling was calling me. And in 2015, I was told, you're right, it's time to go, but listen, this is a pioneer CEO going to transition to another level of leadership. Do you mind staying on as a consultant for 2 years to transition the new leadership in? So I stayed on for 2 more years, and I left in December of 2017, finally. go and do my calling. So Ausso Leadership Academy is my calling. What is it about? It's about shared prosperity. It's about offering people what I wish I had when I was on my entrepreneurial journey. It's about mentoring entrepreneurs and business leaders so that they will scale their businesses dramatically. And if they do so, they will optimize the jobs they create. And if more people have jobs, then I figure out we're going to have shared prosperity. So it is a long route to a destination of shared prosperity. And anytime people academy and they take the mentorship from the academy and they go and do very well in their business and they give all those video testimonies, that to me is my joy. I don't believe that a billionaire is necessarily somebody who has $1 billion in assets and cash. I believe that a billionaire is someone who positively, directly, and indirectly touches 1 billion lives. So you can think about Kennedy, you can think about Martin Luther King, you can think about Nelson Mandela. They may not have $1 billion, but I consider them billionaires because of the lives that they've touched.
I love that. Consider that nicked. I'm stealing that. I think that's amazing. I want to be a billionaire.
Probably you already are, or you're on your way.
I'm on my way. So, I'm definitely on my way, that's for sure. I've got the spirit for it, that's for sure. These conversations help me reach so many people in different ways. And one of the things that I want to unpack a little bit, you've been quite conscious about talking about mentoring. And of course, this is the coaching show for CoCo. So I'm wanting to understand how you define mentoring and how is it different to coaching?
So it was initially very difficult for me to make any distinction between the two. Why? Because a lot of people, apart from the Ausso Leadership Academy, which coaches people in batches, people reached out to me and wanted a one-on-one. And I thought it was mentoring. And the more I spent time with them, I had my framework and my curriculum that I wanted to cover with them. It's in 3 parts. And I tell them, well, we're going to cover this in part 1. It's going to take about 4 to 6 sessions, depending on your speed and your how you're able to catch up, and similar to the other 2. But I realized that when we start a session, there's something on their chest, something that's keeping them awake, something they want to talk about. It's not on my curriculum, and if I try to do my curriculum, they are distracted. So I have to let them unpack everything that is within them and everything that they want to discuss. And sometimes in that session, we don't even touch my curriculum. But I found that it made them very unburdened. It then meant extra sessions that they had to pay for, but they were very happy. In fact, they paid for sessions they didn't need, and they say, if I want to have a call with you, then I'll call on it. And I say, but of course, my time is also very tight. So they want to be sure that, listen, you are there when I need you. Then I started to see that I was doing both mentoring, which was based on my curriculum, and coaching, which was based on helping them to walk through what was their issue, to walk through the soft things that you won't find in the curriculum. And because I'm not invested in what they're discussing with me, I can give them an objective opinion. And based on my experience and the knowledge that I've acquired and the rigor of logic that I bring to it, it's not just a random opinion, but it is an expert opinion. So that then puts those 2 things into context. My mentoring program is based on, I want to get you from here to here. my coaching program now became, I want to unburden you and work out those things which you would want to discuss with someone, but most likely with someone who is not invested or interested party in that thing you want to discuss. You could discuss it with your wife or your children or your business partner, but they are invested. You know, I'll give you an example. There's a gentleman that I was coaching. He worked at Delta and he wanted to come to Nigeria to start something. He's very successful now in Agric. But he told me a story about when he was in Delta, his parents used to get free tickets, seasonal tickets, to go wherever they wanted to go, which was quite nice. I mean, thinking that the biggest portion of the holiday cost was the ticket. So when he discussed about leaving Delta to go to Nigeria to start something, they discouraged him tremendously. They didn't know that they were discouraging him from point of view of their benefits, because obviously they are not going to be getting free tickets again. And that's the danger of discussing something with an interested party. The interested party doesn't even realize that they will be advising you from the point of view of their interests. Mm-hmm. You know, so there you go. It's the difference that I see in my situation regarding mentoring and coaching.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you know that I was a practicing coach. I'm not practicing anymore. Even the idea that I was a practicing coach is an interesting idea. But I think it's important to recognize that mentoring is, well, here's a direction or here's a path you can take and here are the steps I can recommend. And it's more guided, whereas coaching can be anything at all. It's really what the individual needs and what their desired outcomes are. And your role is to not solve their problems, but help them to define the problems so that they can see the solutions for themselves, identify those solutions for themselves.
The other thing I was doing in the Catholic Church, before you get married, you have to go for a 6-week marriage preparation course. And I was teaching marriage counseling in the church. You know, so you have to be very patient listener, not judgmental, to prepare people to say, well, it's not a walk in the park. This is what you're in for, you know. So those soft issues, those empathetic leanings make towards being a good coach. And mentoring is expertise that we're going to put in someone to get them from here to there or their business from here to there. Coaching is a bit more subtle, a bit more empathetic, a bit more of giving up. You feel empty when you finish a coaching session. So you really do give up yourself.
Empty but energized. I always felt so energized when I'd finished a session with a client because I felt them have an aha moment where they were able to reach a conclusion that was just out of reach before, and now it was right there in front of them and they knew what to do and they knew where to go. That's the bit that I love so much.
I have to agree with you, because probably empty is not the right description. You feel spent. There are things that you do strenuous, like you go to the gym and you do it, and at the end of the day, you are spent, but you are fulfilled. There are other things too that are strenuous that when you finish, you feel, you know. So coaching is like that, really. You are fulfilled the day, but you've been through a regime at the gym. You've given, and then you feel fulfilled.
That's great. So you and I have talked previously about a model for transformation that you have. You call it the 5 forces model for transformation, coincidentally enough. Now, I'm kind of curious, this is in the context of business and company, yes?
Mainly, yes.
What do you mean by transformation in that context?
So this came to me. I mean, I've had this experience. I've had to do things from the beginning quite a few times. CWG is one. The Ausso Leadership Academy is another. There are other things that I've done as a serial entrepreneur. And more often than not, you are not taking something that didn't exist and making something of it. You are transforming something that existed, but making it so different that it looks many more times better than that initial place where you started. And when I say mainly business is the most impacted by this pandemic. And I had the pandemic behind my mind when I was formalizing this model. But I've also seen it in action in countries like in Singapore that transformed from a third world to a first world. I've seen it in action in people that are doing transformative projects, like going to the moon. It's very transformative. But if you look at a company, let's use a company, a business as an example. This is not the last impact that will have such a big, that will require such a big response. We had the Spanish flu, we had the First World War, we had the Second World War, we had the global meltdown, we had the Great Depression. There will be something else after COVID. But in the chaos, you find green shoots, and that's where the opportunity for transformation is more often than not more prevalent. Because external forces force you to then consider all these things that I was doing. If I had the opportunity to start again, will I do them the same way or will I do them differently? So I codified that transformation journey into 5 forces. I brought them into 5 forces. And the first that I think is to have a great vision, to see more than anybody else, to see further and beyond anybody else in that particular thing you want to do. So in Singapore, the one that saw was Lee Kuan Yew. Today in Dubai is Al Maktoum. I mean, he's transformed that desert country into the world's biggest tourist destination. In China, they had, in Japan, they had, people talk about Genghis Khan. But these people have a common thread, be it Kennedy, in terms of going to the moon, a great vision. And that vision is so simple, aspirational and inspirational, that it will outlive you. I mean, Kennedy died before they got to the moon, but the vision sustained because it was aspirational and inspirational. Lee Kuan Yew is an old man now. I don't think that the transformation of Singapore will fall off once he leaves the scene. It will continue to transcend him. So a great vision, which needs a visioner. But the visioner is the vessel for the vision. So the important thing is the output, which is the vision. So the first thing about transformation is a great vision, aspirational and inspirational. But the vision needs a team to drive it. And a team is not just a group of people, but people that have shared passion in achieving that vision. So there's an alignment to that vision. And the people in that team know that there's no spare tire. Each person has a role to play, but more importantly, understands the role and his part in the plan of getting to that vision. So the second force then is the team. A formidable team will achieve great results in transformation. If I take an example of Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins, that were in the capsule that landed on the moon, the Apollo capsule. That was a great team. Yes, they had 400,000 odd people everywhere that was supporting them. But all said and done, everything rested on the shoulders of these three people. They got into the capsule that went up. And what they did or did not do would have resulted in success or failure. They carried the aspiration of that vision. And that was a great team. So the team is important, but the right time and timing is also important. You don't go out to sow in the snow. No matter the vision you have about a large expanse of grain, going out to sow in the snow is just wrong. You probably will not get even a single grain. So timing is important, as is time. You don't have all the time in the world. If you know the answers to the exam, you know all the answers perfectly, straight A+, but you don't finish in the time allotted for the exam, you're not going to make that A+. So time is a critical factor. It is the most limiting constraint of all the constraints. And we think is money. I think it's time. You can make money back that you spent or lost. Every minute or second that goes by is gone for good. You cannot get it back. Ask anybody in the hotel business, they'll tell you, that room that didn't rent last night, that's it, forget it. It's not going to get that money back from yesterday. So time is the third force. With all that was done in the preparation of landing a man on the moon by the Americans, they had a very staunch competition in the Russians, who were also working to land a man on the moon. In fact, the Russians were the first to get into space with Sputnik and Yuri Gagarin. If, with all that, the Russians had beat the Americans and got there first, then the whole expedition would have more or less felt flat. So time is important. The fourth resource is resources, because the resources has to match the vision and the goal, the objective, the results you want to achieve. So you can't really have a football team that is not equipped with football boots and jerseys and going to play a match and hope to win. You can't have athletes that are training without a coach because you cannot afford a coach. They need a physio. Sometimes they need a therapist to put their head in the right place. These are resources. And these resources, from a company's perspective, must match the aspiration of what you want to achieve. If I go back to the Apollo mission, I think the amount of money that was spent was about, in those days, money, $25.3 billion, which is about $125 billion in today's money. And they had all sorts of companies that were working to bring this about. And after that, those companies went on to become great companies based on the research they've done to put a man on the moon. But I have to also say that resources are not unlimited. So resources are complemented by the resourcefulness of the team. And resourcefulness is basically trying to achieve something that you want with what you have. So resources must always be complemented with resourcefulness. So that's the fourth force in the journey of transformation. In my view, if not the most important, one of the most important forces is resolve. Resolve is extremely important. You see two fighters in the ring, one big, one small. It doesn't follow that the big fighter is going to win or that the small fighter will win. It's who has the hunger the most to win on that day. Who wants to go that extra mile? Who wants to keep standing when they fall? who wants to say, I will rest when the final bell goes. So the resolve is key for transformation. Without that resolve, the transformation journey is stunted. It becomes like, well, I think Caron would do it. Caron thinks Peter would do it. Peter thinks Andrew would do it. And Andrew thinks Austin would do it. The rules is for everybody to obey, but not for me. I get to the junction and I go. I mean, people wait for me. But who waits for who? It's resolve that makes us achieve. So let me give you an example, since you are close to football. There was a football club in the European Premier League, or in English Premier League, called Leicester City. Leicester had just been promoted to Premier League. And in 2015/16 Premier League season, they won the league. They won the league against established clubs such as Manchester United, against Chelsea, against Liverpool, against Manchester City. Newly promoted, no superstars. Why? Because they had the resolve and they stayed true to that resolve. It wasn't about winning the league. For them, it was about, we have to win this match. Every match that you are in is a final, even if it is not called a final. Because if you win every match, focus on that match that you're playing and win it. Chances are that you win the league. But you have to have the resolve. You have to show up. You have to show up at your best, and you have to show up at your best consistently. And in my view, these are the 5 forces that will bring transformation. And why do I put them as multiples instead of additions? So I don't say transformation is vision plus team plus time plus resources plus resolve. No, it's vision multiplied by team, multiplied by time, multiplied by resources, multiplied by resolve. So transformation is V T squared R squared. Why? Because if you put them as addition, if vision is 0, you are suggesting that we can still have a form of transformation. Or if time is 0, you are suggesting we can have, because 0 plus something is that something. In fact, everything can be 0 and only one will have a value and you can still have transformation, but that is not true. In multiplication, if anything is 0, multiplied by any other thing, it becomes 0. So it then tells you that you need to have these 5 things. One of them not being present will jeopardize transformation.
Wow, I love it. I love talking to you about this stuff. This is, I could go on and on and on, I think, and unpack this in a lot more detail. And I think we will in another time. Now, I want to check in with you because we've been talking now for about an hour and it's been amazing and I've loved it. Respecting your time, I do have a few more questions, but they are going to take us in a tangent. Can I check in that we're okay to keep going? Because I'd love to give the CoCo Coaching Show audience a little bit different, something a little bit different.
Caron, I'm in your hands. I'm enjoying it myself.
Good, excellent, amazing, because I'm loving this so much. I'm geeking out like you wouldn't believe. I can't wait to the day that we get to meet in person in Lagos. Man, you're going to get the biggest hug. So on that,
forward to it.
On that, I want to take us on I want to change the direction, because I want to talk about business in Africa, because I don't think it's a conversation that many Westerners get an opportunity to learn about, certainly not actively, but especially in respect to Nigeria, because Nigeria has a really bad rap. It's got a bad reputation. It's got Nigerian princes all over the shop. It's got, email scams and all sorts of things that have really done Nigeria a profound disservice in its reputation. And it's really disappointing to see, because when I was there in Nigeria, with my husband, meeting his family for the first time, my observation of that incredible country was that it was the land of hidden frowns and giant smiles. And Nigerians are the most entrepreneurial people I have ever met. I swear to God, this land that is hot and sweaty and humid would be able to sell ice to Eskimos. Absolutely, hands down, better than the Eskimos themselves. I'm wondering, why do you think Nigerians are as entrepreneurial as they are?
Caron, I ask myself that question as well. Is it that you are born Nigerian, therefore you are entrepreneurial? Or is it you are entrepreneurial, so you are born in Nigeria, or you come to Nigeria, you become entrepreneurial? It's bustling with entrepreneurial energy. One of the theories that I propounded was that the institutions, especially the regulatory, do not necessarily provide assistance. So people try to get by despite the institutions, despite the government. And when you are getting by on your own, you build reserves of entrepreneurial acumen. You have to find a way around everything because there's a bottleneck around everything. You know, so if I give you an example of our creative industry, Nollywood, and our music industry, I don't think they've gotten any support from the Ministry of Culture or any promotion or advertisement. They just became and blossomed despite, in spite of, not because of. And the challenges they have in intellectual property rights and so on, they have to find a way around it. So they've come up with their own beats, their own genre, etc. The plots in the movies are unique to them. People watch Nollywood knowing that it is not going to be like any other plot of a movie anywhere else. And it's
Nope.
unique.
And good luck understanding it because the captions are not accurate and it drives me crazy. I think in another life, in a different career, I'm going to become a caption writer for Nollywood movies because it drives me crazy.
There you go. So if we have seen this industry that is contributing 12% of GDP and the captions are not correct, perhaps this is where institutional regulation can step in and say, how can I help? Here is a vote of money to bring experts to coach you in that, or, you know, but there's no help. They're just making their way as they go. So that's why I think that Nigerians tend to be entrepreneurial, because you just have to find a way around every bottleneck. And those bottlenecks are not helped by the people that are in government. I won't say the government, but the people that are in government. Take the vaccine. This vaccine has a very short shelf life, relatively short shelf life. So your best bet is to give the jab to as many people as possible, you know. But if you don't coordinate the way it's done, people have told stories of woe when they go to the vaccination center, and they are not encouraged because it's just chaos upon chaos. And you could say people should register online so that they know that they are being expected here at this time. Or you could say the first 200 to come. It has to be one or the other. But it can't be a free-for-all, because then what then happens, and you talk about being known for scams and so on, people might then be tempted to turn it into a distraction, to say, listen, I don't have time for all this. Can I give you 10,000 naira, just make a way for me to go? And that becomes a distraction. Then that becomes institutionalized. And then that back door becomes the main door instead of the back door. So everybody sees that, listen, if I pay something, I can get it. So, and that's where it starts. It starts by the bottlenecks. If you take the ports and clearing of goods from Apapa port, it's probably the most cumbersome from clearing of goods in Benin Republic or Togo or Ghana. Why? Why? And so people become entrepreneurial around it. Unfortunately, not all is positive, because then a lot of this has got to do with opening the back door, which ends up becoming the main door. And the people waiting to be ushered into the main door don't get in because the business is being done at the back door. And when you talk about why is it that Nigeria has a bad reputation with 419 and so on, it's got to do with opportunities. There have to be opportunities for people to aspire to take advantage of those opportunities. They finish school, the youth unemployment is very high. I mean, we're talking about in the 40s, maybe 33%, yeah. 33 or 34%. Now take that percentage of a population of 200 million. Okay, maybe the working average age or the working average population is 100 million. For argument's sake, I don't know the correct figure. But even if it's 100 million, 34% of 100 million is 34 million people with nothing to put bread on their table. I mean, the options are there. Just sit quietly, wait until hunger kills you, hope for something, or survive anyhow. And people survive anyhow. And once you get into that line of crime, the ease with which the money comes then makes you even disinterested to look for a job that is going to pay you a minimum age. Because, hey, listen, a minimum wage, because you can get so much by either a love scam, somebody gives you $40,000 of their life savings. The problem being that for that person, the impact is great because that's their life saving. For you, it's a free $40,000 in one afternoon's time of work. Why would you go and take a job that is going to pay you $200 a month? So once you've tasted that blood, it's difficult to go back. But I think that the opportunities should be immense if we handle things properly. And if you look at what the Ausso Leadership is about, it's about shared prosperity. There is enough resources. There is more than enough to go around for everybody's need. But unfortunately, the people that matter are after their greed, and there's not enough for that greed. And therefore, you have the stunted situation of a big gulf between a very few people that have privileges and access and assets, and a huge population that has to manage with just meager leftover. And so you find the impact of that being people emigrating, going elsewhere. Out of desperation, they probably go with a visiting visa, throw away their passport, and then here they are, and then what to do? So what attracts you is what is easy. People find you as a target to use for crime, and you want food in your belly. So it's a complex mix. But having said that, the majority of Nigerians are going about trying to do legitimate business to put food on their table. But if you take even 10% that may be deviant, 10% of 200 million is still 20 million. That's the population of a small country. So you feel the impact of their deviant behavior. And that's why Nigeria gets that rap. If we were just 2 million, 10% of us will just be 2 million. So the impact will not be that big. But 10% deviant people in a population of 200 is quite a lot. So I summarize it in another model. In my view, no sovereign can make significant progress where the number of citizens are far outnumbered by the number of idiots and the number of tribesmen. What do I mean by that? If we go to the Greek mythology, the Greek says there are these three types of people. They have the idiot, not an imbecile, normal person wearing a suit and everything, but extremely selfish and extremely greedy and extremely self-centered. Only he matters, his pleasure and his treasure. Loot the treasury, don't obey any rule, and so they're there. But there's also the tribesman, according to the Greek. And the tribesman is everything like you and I, except that he doesn't see and recognize anything that is different from him. So not just ethnic tribalism, but between rich and poor, he doesn't see poor people. Or even gender tribes. You don't see people of another gender. Or even age tribe. Oh, those young people are just a waste of time. So those tribes people, the old boys club, they call it. You just hold things within yourself and you exclude other people that are not like you or the same mind as you. You know, and the tribesman is probably personified by a strong man, a warrior. You know, I'm fighting for you. I don't want to use the phrase, but something like America first. So me first, my people first. And when that happens, it's to the it's to the exclusion of. Exactly. But then there is the citizen, and the citizen is the one that understands that he has his rights, but also knows that he has responsibilities. He's one that works for the good of the society, knowing that he will also benefit from it. The citizen is the one that has a grudge, and no matter how powerful he is, he recognizes that the person that has a grudge with also has rights, and you go to court, you know, even against his bitterest enemy. Don't just catch him and put him in jail. So if you have more citizens in the country than idiots and tribesmen, then the country will make progress. But if you have more idiots and tribesmen than citizens, then you are facing a blank wall. It's a long answer to a short question.
But it's a really complex problem that doesn't have a simple answer. And I look forward to the day that I've accomplished what I have to do here in Australia and I'm able to relocate with my family to Nigeria and bring, with my husband's, you know, support and his acumen and his experience, and for him and I to combine forces to bring both of us together to make our mark and to be able to do something with that entrepreneurial spirit that embraces it in a really positive way, that prosperity that you talk to. My husband's a semi-professional footballer, soccer player, and one of the things that I learned very early on in my relationship with him is around the scams that happen with young footballers, because they have these incredible aspirations and they get this money together and then they're sent to another country to play football. And all of the hype that goes with those dreams is absolutely smashed and squashed when they realize, well, they've been duped. And now they're stuck in another country with no money to their name and they can't call home because their family and everyone they know has funded the ticket to get them overseas and to pay said manager who promised them the world. Now, it doesn't need to be like this. It doesn't. We can teach young boy and girl footballers the way the industry works. And the aspiration that Sunny and I have is to create a football academy. But inside that education is the opportunity to give these high school aged children a high school education through the perspective of business and entrepreneurialism. Teaching them mindset, teaching them emotional intelligence, teaching them good, pure business acumen management skills, everything to do with managing business, so that when they make the big bucks, because we'll teach them how to do it in football, they can bring it back to their families, their communities, and they can actually use that money to improve their local community, as opposed to buy a Lamborghini that they don't really need. You know, like it's about teaching them to take what is, I think, their birthright simply from that despite culture that is ingrained in them from birth and making good on it. Teaching them how to play football incredibly well, supporting and managing their careers, but giving them the business and entrepreneurial knowledge to make a difference when they've got the money to make a difference. And that's what Sunny and I are working towards. That's our 10-year to 15-year to our legacy. That's our billion impact, so to speak. Now,
so you make a good point, and I would like to touch on that point before you move on.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that thing that you have in mind to do, you'll be surprised how much it contributes to the $30 billion remittances to Nigeria per year. Because that's the amount that comes into Nigeria from diasporas per year. That's as big as we get from our oil revenues. But it's not taken into consideration on how to nurture it. Tech, entertainment, football, a big part of this chunk. The beautiful thing about Nigeria and all that is that when you take payments, they've done very well. We've done great. We have companies like Paystack that is become a unicorn. We have Flutterwave that has become a unicorn. In March alone, Nigeria attracted $203 million in investments, more than it in tech, more than it did in the whole of last year. So those are success stories. The bigger success story into Africa is that there is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that is coming to force, that is going to look at the market of the 55 countries instead of discrete pieces of different legislation and so on, as a full market of 1 billion people, commanding a market, with a simplified set of customs rules and so on. So that's progress. So those are the things that are beacons of hope. I mean, if you take CWG, we have operations in Nigeria, we have in Ghana, we have in Cameroon, we have in Uganda, and it would be nice to have very little friction in doing business across the continent. We probably will go into more, into Angola and so on. And I'm hoping that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement will achieve that. So when I look in the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel is very bright, but it remains potential until it is made kinetic by achieving it. And we have to chart a path to achieve it by, first of all, removing all those bottlenecks that are there either by design or by accident. Those bottlenecks just don't make people confident to come. People want to make money, but they want to be alive to enjoy the money. Look at security in Nigeria. You need to beef it up. That's what Ghana has, peaceful environment. So it's a smaller market, but people go there in droves to invest because of the fact that they are guaranteed security. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we have a lot of work to do to create a path to that light.
I guess in closing of this idea, what are some of the benefits, but also what are some of the challenges that in the years of being an entrepreneur and a business founder in Nigeria you've experienced? Why do business in a country with a lot of red tape and politics and regulation?
So, Caron, I think the challenges that I have seen mainly come from regulatory inconsistency. Regulatory, I'll give you an example, vivid example. Much earlier in my business life at CWG, being a partner of Dell, Exxon segment customer of Dell, which means they had a uniform price for the Dell they buy wherever it is in the world, including Nigeria. and we were obliged to respect that price. So we got a big order from ExxonMobil for some precision equipment for their rigs, which was something that would take the company to a very different level. And we placed the order. And then in the middle, the rules for customs clearance changed from destination inspection. Destination inspection means the good comes, they are inspected, they are valued, and you pay your customs duty. Source inspection is that the goods are inspected and the valuation of duty determined before the goods are put on the boat. Now, my goods were already left the source. And then you change the rule and you say it's effective backtracked. So my goods are stranded. They get to Nigeria, I cannot clear them because neither Cotecna nor SGS have inspected them. And at the time that I was shipping them, the rule was destination. And ExxonMobil understood that this is not a problem that I've created, but they also have a rig to run. I mean, every day they were not running, they were losing $100 million. And they said, we have no choice than to cancel the order. I couldn't sell the goods to anybody else because these are precision equipment for them. And the whole operating system has been changed to their standard operating system. And so what do? And I don't know how many companies found themselves in this situation and how many probably went under. I found a way around it, and that's where the entrepreneurial spirit, comes in. But it shouldn't be so, it shouldn't be so. Eventually I delivered, but regulation has to give time. If you say I'm going to change this way, give people time. When the UK was going out of the European Union, it didn't happen overnight. They had 4 years. Then they had an extension. They planned it so that you don't just slam things on people when they have not had opportunity to prepare to adhere. So I think we need to sort out regulation. We need to sort out this haphazard way of doing things and thinking that things are done by the switch of a button.
Not a great deal of transparency in how the country is administered. So for example, in Australia, we have salary and wage awards. So the amount that you should get paid according to an award, depending on the job and obviously the industry. But there's none of that in Nigeria. So there's no real job security or transparency on, and it may be different in other African countries, but from Nigeria, there's no transparency. So the police are underpaid, and this is just an example, the police are underpaid, so therefore they bribe, the civilians, and, all the underhanded things that happen and go on there that I've learned more about thanks to Nollywood movies than than anything else. How have you gotten around all of that red tape in your years of business? How have you played the game?
Initially, you will be tempted to believe that there is no way around it. So you have to, if you can't beat them, you join them.
Yeah, that was my next question for you. How have you prevented yourself from being, joining that side of the fence, so to speak?
I think it's difficult, but in the long term, it's beneficial because people know you as a certain kind of person. When we took our mantra that this is how we're going to do business, this is how we're going to live, and no matter how difficult it is, that's what we'll do, we were not getting business from the traditional sources of business, because it's like you don't want to discuss this, then you are not serious. But you continue to build capacity. So again, I don't know how others did it, but in my own case, it's unplanned. It just evolved. Because we hitched ourselves to Dell, and because Dell had all those international customers that are global segment, ExxonMobil, Total, whoever, Blue Circle, they had a code of ethics. And those were the people we're doing business with. So we're shielded, more or less. Now, when we venture into doing business with local organizations, big organizations, governments, maybe, because they have the biggest spenders, we found that the rules could be different. But we have capacity, we have knowledge, we have expertise, because the technology maturity of the companies we are serving, these international companies, scale us up. We have what to offer. And we didn't think we were going to pay to offer it. And it's still available to be offered. So eventually people get to understand that, well, this guy is mad, but he's the one that can do this thing. So we partnered with another company called Infosys for a banking application called Finacle. And it was very instructive. We met them in 2000, and in 2000, there was a threat of the Y2K bug. So many companies scrambled to put in systems that met a certain standard. And time and chance, there we were with Finacle. And so we became very successful with Finacle. In fact, in our first year, we had 3 banks, and each bank Finacle implementation about $10 million. So you can imagine. Today, Nigeria has about 65% of banking transactions going through our Finacle application. And so the question is, we have the expertise to deliver this to you, but we have a way by which we do business. So if you want our expertise, then we're going to do it that way. And so that is the way it works. So we have also studiously avoided banging our heads on places where the way we want to do business will not work. But I also see your point. Why is it even so rampant? I think it's 2 things. One is exactly what you said, that we don't check to see that the minimum age will really take somebody through the month. We don't check. And if you're paying somebody a wage that will not take he as the person through the month, not to talk of his family, in other words, you are beckoning him to take care of himself. And he will take care of himself in any way that he knows. You give a policeman a gun and you underpay him and he has a gun. Of course, he can inspire people, in quotes, to give him what they don't want to give him. How do we get around that? You see, that transparency is missing. The discussion on the news yesterday was about minimum wage. And there is a minimum wage of 30,000 naira per month. I think it's about roughly $60 a month.
Yeah, it's nothing.
And the government, that's really nothing. The governors are saying, why should the minimum wage be a national issue? In other words, some states want to set their own minimum wage below that minimum wage. And the question I ask is, can the state truly not afford it? Or is it because some actors in the state are taking so much more than their share that there's not enough to go around? And that's where the transparency comes. And one of the public officials was quoting statistics from America. He says the governor of Maine makes $90,000 per annum, whereas the governor of California makes $210,000 per annum. It shows that it cannot be uniform across the country. My point is, you know the salary of the governor of Maine, and you know the salary of the governor of California, but nobody knows your salary. Nobody knows the salary of the governors. Nobody knows the salary of the senators. But we are able to quote salaries of people far away from us. And perhaps that transparency, if it's entrenched, is what will ensure that people take what's their due. so that there will be enough to go around.
Well, I think there has to be accountability there. There has to be auditing. There has to be, you know, if a company, I mean, CWG is a great example. I mean, you're listed, you're responsible to your shareholders, you have to do an AGM every single year. There is transparency that is required by compliance in order to remain listed on the stock exchange. Why can't governments be held to the same standard, particularly countries that have less trust, and that is most of the African countries? Maybe I'm broad sweeping here, but thanks to my, you know, white girl privilege over here in Australia. But I think that the fact that there is regulation without transparency prevents accountability and therefore prevents trust, and it creates an environment in which people feel like they have no other option other than to break the law, to scam, to bribe, to do anything underhanded simply to feed themselves and their family and keep a roof over their head. Those essential services of security are not afforded. Why? Because the system is not set up to support them to feel that sense of security. Sorry, it's clearly something that really frustrates me. And it is what holds the country back. You know, it prevents growth.
It does. On this issue, the leaders are not only the people to be blamed. You have to blame the people as well. Why? Because I believe that there's a supply side of governance or government, and there's a demand side of government. The supply side is someone vying for elective position, tells you, I will do this and I'll do that and I'll do this. Vague. The demand side should be where we should ask them to say, okay, translate these vague things into measurable indices. I will provide security. What does it mean? Can we measure it by the number of tourists that are coming in, so we know the percentage of the number of tourists that came in before you got elected? And after you got elected, has that increased? I'll provide jobs. Fine. Let's measure what was the unemployment rate when you got in and what it is at the end, so that if we enforce the demand side of government, then we can decide whether the man deserves a second term or whether we can vote him out and vote somebody else in.
So on that, do you think that, and I'll be specific to Nigeria, do you think the Nigerian people in that experience of demand are given enough voice? Are they really heard? And by being heard, are they listened to?
First and foremost, authority is 80% taken and 20% given. So you need to make that demand strongly and standing straight. You cannot expect the politician that is looking for elective office to bribe you to vote, and then you go to demand what? He has bribed you, he has paid for the position he is in. And this is very rampant. And the bribes are so small, a bag of rice maybe, but it also stems from lack of knowledge or illiteracy. People are not able to engage in the discussions that will trigger the right person in a position. And when they are not able to intelligently discuss why this person and not that person, we'll revert to primordial sentiments such as ethnicity, or he's from my ethnic tribe, or he's from my village. But that is never a qualification for a leadership position. And if you don't field consistently your first 11 or your best 11, then you are always going to be sliding. So if you look at what Ghana has done, they have what they call the free SHS system, free senior high school system, where everybody gets Doesn't matter whether you can afford it or not. Everybody goes to high school free. In 10 years, we'll reap the benefit because their discussion towards electing their leaders will be robust and based on objective criteria rather than primordial versions of ethnicity and so on. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the trust you mentioned. The leaders, when they get there and they don't demonstrate trust with the taxes they collect, they make it very difficult for people to want to pay taxes. And so people then dodge taxes, and then it's a vicious circle or a cycle, because without taxes, then you can have development. But then people who have already paid taxes and they are not seeing development, so they don't want to pay taxes anymore. It's something about transparency, governance, institutions, education, and we have to do all of them at the same time. Knowing that if we don't do them, even the amount of wealth we have cornered for ourselves illegally, we cannot enjoy it. We are not safe. As a rich man, you cannot sleep with your two eyes closed when there are hungry bellies outside there. So what's the point of your riches?
I feel like you and I could talk for hours about things like this, and it's endlessly fascinating. And I'm not sure necessarily how pertinent it is to our coaching community, but I certainly hope that our very lively conversation has opened our audience's mind to thinking about Nigeria, Africa, business, coaching, mentorship, and all things related to your experiences that you shared with us. And they're much more open-minded now and open-hearted. That's certainly my desired outcome from our conversation. Austin, I cannot thank you enough for how incredible this conversation has been. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caron. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my insights.
Bless.